My dad said like it was nothing. Just mortgage your house after demanding I pay for my brother's dream wedding. I shook my head and replied I'm not going back into debt, so he can pretend to be rich for one day. My girlfriend Sarah, 28, keeps telling me this situation is insane, but when you grow up in something, it's hard to see clearly. Background. I've always been the responsible son, while my younger brother Adam, 26M, was the golden child who could do no wrong. I was working part-time jobs since I was 16. My parents always had different standards for us. Adam got a brand new car for his 16th birthday. I got their old sedan when I could afford the insurance. Adam's college was fully paid for. I worked nights and took out loans. You get the picture. Despite everything, I never resented Adam. It wasn't his fault our parents treated us differently. I focused on building my life. I went into IT, lived frugally, and by 28, I'd saved enough for a down payment on a modest house. Last year, I made my final mortgage payment. That house is my pride and joy. Nothing fancy, but it's mine free and clear. I met Sarah 2 years ago at a friend's barbecue. She's an accountant, fiercely independent, and has this way of seeing through BS that I've always admired. She moved in 6 months ago, and we've been talking about our future. Marriage, kids, the whole thing. She's been incredibly supportive about my family dynamics, though she's made it clear she thinks my parents take advantage of me. Here's where everything exploded. Adam got engaged 3 months ago to his girlfriend Nicole, 24F. They've been together for a year. Nicole comes from money, and I think Adam felt pressure to match her family's expectations. He proposed with a ring he couldn't afford, maxed out his credit cards, and now they're planning this elaborate wedding that would cost roughly $75,000. My parents called a family meeting last week. I knew something was up when Mom made my favorite dinner and Dad was being unusually friendly. After dessert, they dropped the bomb. They want me to take out a mortgage on my house to help fund Adam's wedding. Their reasoning, family helps family. And since I'm the successful one with assets, it's my responsibility to ensure Adam has the wedding he deserves. They actually use the word deserves. They said Adam has had a tough time finding his path. He's had 7 jobs in 4 years and currently works part-time at a golf club, and this wedding could be his fresh start. I sat there stunned while they laid out their plan. I'd mortgage my house for $50,000, they'd contribute $15,000 from their savings, and Adam would cover the rest, though I have no idea how, considering he makes maybe $2,000 a month. Mom said it would be a loan that Adam would pay back when he's on his feet, but we all know that's never happening. The worst part, they'd already told Adam I'd agreed to this. He's been texting me about how grateful he is and how this means everything to him. They literally committed me to this without even asking. Sarah was in the kitchen during this conversation, and I could hear her loading the dishwasher with increasing violence. When my parents left, she was angrier than I've ever seen her. She said my parents are financially abusive and that if I go through with this, she needs to reconsider our relationship because she can't build a future with someone who'll destroy their financial stability for users. She's not wrong. That mortgage payment would be about $400 a month for 30 years, assuming I could even get approved for it. Plus, property taxes would go up, insurance would increase, and I'd be paying interest on money for a party. But here's my dilemma. Adam's already planning this wedding. Venues are booked, deposits are paid on credit cards, and invitations are being designed. If I don't help, he'll either have to cancel everything and lose deposits, or my elderly parents will destroy their retirement savings trying to cover it. Dad already has heart problems, and Mom keeps talking about how this might be their last big family celebration. Sarah says none of this is my problem, that Adam and my parents created this situation, and they can figure it out. She's shown me spreadsheets of what this would do to our plans. We'd have to push back buying a bigger house, delay having kids, and forget about the vacation we've been planning. I feel torn between the family I grew up with and the family I'm trying to build. My parents keep calling each conversation more guilt-heavy than the last. Mom cried on the phone yesterday saying she never thought I'd be selfish and that she's disappointed in who I've become. Adam texted asking if we could grab lunch to discuss payment plans for after the wedding. Sarah has been supportive but firm. She's not issuing ultimatums, but she's made it clear that this decision will affect how she sees our future. She keeps asking, what happens when Adam needs a house, a new car, when his kids need college funds? Where does it end? I don't know what to do. I love my family, but I also love Sarah and the life we're building. I worked so hard for that house, but family is supposed to come first, right? Except when does helping become enabling? When does family loyalty become self-destruction? Any advice would be appreciated. Am I being selfish for not wanting to mortgage my house? Or is Sarah right that this is completely unreasonable? Update 1 posted 5 days later. I didn't expect my post to get so much attention. Thank you to everyone who responded. Your comments ranged from gentle reality checks to harsh truths I needed to hear. Several of you shared similar stories that helped me realize how common and toxic this dynamic is. After reading hundreds of responses and doing a lot of soul searching, I decided to stand my ground. I called my parents and told them I would not be mortgaging my house. I explained that while I love Adam, enabling his poor financial decisions wouldn't help him in the long run. I offered to contribute $2,000 as a wedding gift, which is what I budgeted for, but nothing more. The call didn't go well. Dad called me heartless and Mom sobbed, saying I was abandoning family. They hung up on me. Adam sent a series of increasingly hostile texts, calling me selfish, saying I was jealous of his happiness, and claiming I'd always resented him. That last part stung, because it's so untrue. I've always wanted the best for him. But here's where things took an unexpected turn. Sarah had been quiet since that phone call, and I assumed she was letting me process. I was wrong. She was planning. Yesterday, she asked if we could have Sunday dinner with my parents. I thought she wanted to smooth things over, maybe find a compromise. I should have known better. Sarah doesn't do compromise when it comes to what she sees as injustice. We arrived at my parents' house for dinner. Adam and Nicole were there too, which surprised me. The atmosphere was Arctic. Mom barely acknowledged me, and Dad kept making passive-aggressive comments about family values. Halfway through dinner, Sarah set down her fork and said she had something to say. My stomach dropped. Sarah is composed and professional, but when she's had enough, she's formidable. She started calmly. Robert, Patricia, I've watched you manipulate Michael for 2 years, but this mortgage situation is where I draw the line. Mom tried to interrupt, but Sarah held up her hand. Please let me finish. You've created a dynamic where Michael's success is seen as a resource for Adam's failures. You've parentified one son while infantilizing the other, and you're destroying both of them in the process. The room was silent. Adam's face was red. Nicole looked uncomfortable. Dad started to speak, but Sarah wasn't done. Michael worked full-time through college while Adam partied his way through school on your dime. Michael lived on ramen to save for a house while Adam burned through jobs and credit cards. And now, when Michael has finally achieved something through his own effort, you want him to risk it all for a wedding Adam can't afford? That's not love, that's exploitation. Mom started crying, saying Sarah didn't understand family. That's when Sarah dropped the bomb. I understand family perfectly. My parents would never ask me to destroy my future for my siblings' party. Real family protects each other's well-being. What you're doing is emotional and financial abuse, and I won't stand by and watch you destroy the man I love. She turned to Adam. And you're 26 years old. You have no savings, no stable job, and no plan, but you think you deserve a $75,000 wedding. You were happy to let your brother mortgage his home for your party. What kind of man does that? Adam tried to defend himself, saying it was our parents' idea, but Sarah cut him off. And you went along with it. You're not a child. You're an adult who's content to let others sacrifice for your comfort. That's not brotherly love, it's parasitism. Finally, she looked at my parents again. Michael will not be mortgaging his house. He will not be funding this wedding. And if you continue to emotionally manipulate him, if you continue to treat him as an ATM while coddling Adam, then you'll lose him, and you'll lose any chance of knowing your future grandchildren. The silence that followed was deafening. Nicole was staring at her plate. Adam looked like he'd been slapped. Dad's face was purple with rage and Mom was sobbing. Sarah stood up, looked at me and said, "We're leaving." It wasn't a question. As we walked to the car, my hands were shaking. I've never had anyone defend me like that. I've never had anyone see through my family's dynamics so clearly and call it out so forcefully. Part of me was terrified. Had she just destroyed my family relationships? But a bigger part felt free. In the car, Sarah broke down crying. She said she couldn't watch them hurt me anymore. She told me about how her family works. They support each other but expect accountability. Her brother started a business and their parents helped with a loan that had terms, interest, and a payment schedule that he honored. That's healthy help, not enabling. We got home and my phone exploded. Texts from Adam calling Sarah a gold digger, ironic considering the situation. Voicemails from Mom saying Sarah had ruined everything and that I was choosing a woman over family. Messages from Dad saying I was no longer welcome in their home until I apologized and controlled my girlfriend. But here's the thing, Sarah was right. Every word she said was true. And for the first time in my life, someone had stood up to my parents on my behalf. We spent the rest of the night talking. Sarah apologized for ambushing me, but said she couldn't watch them manipulate me anymore. She showed me articles about financial abuse, enmeshment, and toxic family dynamics. It was like reading about my life from an outside perspective. I'm not going to lie, this hurts. I love my family dysfunction and all. But Sarah's right. Where does it end? Today, it's a mortgage for a wedding. Tomorrow, it's buying Adam a house. Next, it's funding his kids' lives while our own children go without. I've decided to stand firm. No mortgage, no large financial contribution, no more enabling. I'm looking into therapy to deal with the guilt and to understand why I've accepted this treatment for so long. Sarah and I are stronger than ever. Having someone love you enough to face down your demons with you, to stand up to the people who hurt you, even when you won't stand up for yourself, that's real love. I don't know what will happen with my family. Adam's wedding is in 3 months, and they'll either figure it out or they won't. But I'm done lighting myself on fire to keep others warm. Thank you all for your support and advice. It gave me the courage to choose my future over my past. Update 2-3 months later. It's been 3 months since Sarah's confrontation with my family, And I wanted to share what's happened because it's not what I expect. After we left that dinner, I went no contact with my family for about 2 weeks to process everything. Sarah found me a therapist who specializes in family enmeshment and financial abuse. Those sessions have been eye-opening. I've realized that my entire sense of worth was tied to being the responsible one, and my parents reinforced that dynamic because it benefited them. The silence from my family was deafening at first. Then, surprisingly, Nicole reached out to Sarah. They met for coffee, and Nicole admitted she'd been uncomfortable with the whole situation. She didn't grow up wealthy. Her family is just comfortable, and she never wanted or expected a massive wedding. The pressure was coming from Adam trying to prove himself and my parents encouraging it. Nicole had apparently given Adam an ultimatum after our dinner: grow up or lose her. She wasn't going to marry someone who expected his family to bankroll their life. This led to the first breakthrough. Adam called me not to attack or demand money, but to actually talk. He admitted he'd been living in a fantasy, assuming there would always be someone to bail him out. Nicole had made him create a real budget for the first time in his life, and he was shocked to realize he couldn't even afford his current lifestyle, let alone a wedding. For the first time ever, Adam apologized. Not a manipulative, "I'm sorry, but" apology, but a real one. He admitted he'd been selfish, that he'd taken advantage of both me and our parents, and that Sarah's words had been a wake-up call he desperately needed. The wedding has been completely reimagined. Instead of a $75,000 spectacle, Adam and Nicole planned a $10,000 backyard ceremony at Nicole's parents' house. They're doing a potluck reception, DIY decorations, and a friend is DJing. Adam took extra shifts at the golf club and got a second job doing freelance graphic design. He'd actually graduated with a design degree, but never pursued it seriously. Between them, they saved $7,000 in 2 months. Nicole's parents gifted them $3,000. No loans, no credit cards, no mortgaging houses. My parents were the hardest to come around. Mom called after a month crying, but different tears of realization. She admitted they'd put too much pressure on me over the years. Dad took longer, but eventually he called too. He couldn't quite apologize, but he said he understood my position. The real breakthrough came when Adam invited all of us to dinner at his apartment. Yes, he and Nicole got their own place instead of living with our parents. He'd prepared a meal. Adam cooking was itself a miracle, and he had something to say. He thanked Sarah. He said her words at that dinner were the harshest but most necessary thing anyone had ever said to him. He'd been coasting through life enabled by our parents, always expecting someone else to solve his problems. He was on track to be 40 and still dependent, still making excuses, still blaming circumstances. Adam looked at me and said, "You were never the lucky one for being responsible. I was the unlucky one for never having to be. You learned to stand on your own feet while I learned to fall and expect to be caught." Sarah saved me from myself. It was the most mature thing I'd ever heard him say. The wedding last weekend was beautiful, simple, genuine, and full of joy. Adam worked every detail. Nicole's family helped with setup, and everyone contributed something. My parents seemed lighter, like a weight had lifted. Mom pulled me aside and admitted that trying to maintain Adam's dependence while using my resources had been exhausting them financially and emotionally. During the reception, Adam made a toast. He thanked Nicole for her patience and love. He thanked our parents for being there. Then he thanked Sarah for having the courage to say what needed to be said, and me for being the brother who showed him what actual hard work looked like, even if he'd resented it at the time. But here's the best part. Sarah and I are engaged. I proposed last month, not at the wedding. I'd never do that to Adam and Nicole. I did it at our house in the backyard I'd almost risked on a mortgage. I told her that she'd show me what real partnership looks like. She'd fought for me when I couldn't fight for myself. She'd loved me enough to risk my family's anger to protect our future. She said yes, crying and laughing, saying she'd marry me in a courthouse if that's what we wanted, because the marriage mattered, not the wedding. We're actually planning a small destination wedding with just close friends and immediate family. Budget of $15,000 that we're paying for ourselves. Adam was the first person we told. He hugged Sarah and said, "Thank you for saving all of us." Because that's what she did. She saved me from financial ruin, saved Adam from perpetual adolescence, and saved my parents from enabling themselves into poverty. My therapist says this is the best possible outcome, but warns that maintaining these boundaries will be an ongoing process. Old patterns die hard, and there will likely be backsliding. But for now, things are good. Adam has kept both jobs and is talking about going back to school for his master's. Nicole is proud of who he's becoming. My parents are treating both of us as adults rather than as the responsible one and the baby. And Sarah and I are planning our future without the weight of toxic obligations. To everyone who told me that standing up to family manipulation would destroy my relationships, you were wrong. It destroyed the dysfunction and let us rebuild something healthier. It wasn't easy, and there were moments I wondered if I'd lost them forever. But Sarah's courage in that moment changed all our lives. Sometimes the kindest thing you can do for someone is refuse to enable them. Sometimes The most loving act is forcing them to grow up. And sometimes it takes an outsider to show a family how sick their dynamics have become. Thank you again to everyone who commented on my original post. Your words gave me strength when I needed it most. And to anyone dealing with similar family dynamics, it's not your job to bankroll other people's dreams at the expense of your own future. It's not selfish to protect what you've worked for, and it's not cruel to expect adults to act like adults. Choose the people who choose you, who fight for you, who see your worth beyond what you can provide. I chose Sarah, and it was the best decision I've ever made. Final update 1 month after the wedding. I thought I was done updating, but something happened yesterday that felt like the perfect ending to this saga. Adam invited Sarah and me over for dinner. When we arrived, my parents were there too. My first thought was ambush, and Sarah tensed beside me, but Adam quickly assured us this was different. After dinner, Adam stood up and pulled out an envelope. Inside was a check for $2,000, the wedding gift I'd offered months ago when I refused to mortgage my house. "I can't accept this," he said, pushing it back to me. "You've already given me something worth more than money." He turned to Sarah. "You gave me the truth when everyone else was giving me excuses. You made me see that I was heading toward 30, 40, 50, still expecting other people to fund my life. You saved me from becoming someone I wouldn't be able to respect." Then he pulled out another envelope, a 5-year payment plan he'd created. Not for a loan he'd taken, but for all the money our parents had given him over the years that they'd never given me. He'd calculated everything he could remember: the car, the college payments, the credit card bailouts, the loans never repaid. "I can't pay it all back," he said to our parents, "but I can start and I can stop taking." Our parents tried to protest, but Adam insisted. "You gave me everything, but it made me nothing. You gave Michael nothing, and it made him everything. It's time to balance the scales." He's been putting $500 a month into an account for our parents' retirement. He showed us the statements, 3 months of consistent deposits. Then Nicole stood up. She thanked Sarah too, saying that watching her stand up to my parents gave her the courage to stand up to Adam. "I almost married a man-child who expected the world to provide for him. Now I'm married to a man who's learning to provide for himself and others." My dad, who's never been emotional, actually wiped his eyes. He looked at Sarah and said, "You did what we should have done 20 years ago. You loved our boys enough to tell them the truth." Mom added, "We thought we were being loving parents, but we were creating a dynamic that would have destroyed both our sons eventually. Michael would have burned out trying to carry everyone, and Adam would have never learned to carry himself." As we were leaving, Adam pulled Sarah aside. I heard him say, "Michael's lucky to have you, but more than that, our whole family is lucky to have you. You're the sister I never knew I needed, the one who'll call me on my BS and make me better." Sarah was crying by the time we got to the car. Good tears. Healing tears. This morning we got a text in our family group chat. Yes, we have one now, and it's actually healthy. Adam had shared a photo of his latest pay stub from a full-time graphic design position he just landed. His first real career job with benefits and a salary that's actually more than mine was at his age. His message read, "To Sarah, who saved me from myself, to Michael, who showed me what hard work looks like, to Mom and Dad, who are learning to love us both the same, and to Nicole, who loves the man I'm becoming, not the boy I was." My therapist says this kind of transformation is rare. Usually when you stand up to toxic family dynamics, you lose people, sometimes forever. We got lucky. We had people willing to hear hard truths and make real changes, but none of it would have happened without Sarah's courage at that dinner. She risked everything: my family's love, potentially our relationship, if I'd sided with them, her own comfort to speak the truth. We're getting married next spring. Adam will be my best man, because the brother I have now, the one who works hard, takes responsibility, and stands on his own feet, is the brother I always wanted. And Sarah will walk down the aisle knowing she didn't just marry into a family, she helped rebuild one. To everyone in toxic family dynamics, change is possible, but only when someone has the courage to demand it. Sometimes that person has to be you. Sometimes you're blessed enough that it's someone who loves you enough to fight for your future. Find yourself a Sarah, or better yet, be someone else's Sarah. Stand up to the manipulation, call out the toxicity, and demand better. It might blow everything up, or it might rebuild everything better than before. Thank you all for following this journey. Your support meant everything. And Sarah says thank you too. Your comments gave her the validation that she wasn't crazy for seeing what everyone else was willing to ignore. Here's to chosen family, earned respect and love that's brave enough to tell the truth. 1 year later, I stood in the backyard of the same house I had once almost mortgaged away and watched Sarah smile as she watered the young maple trees we had planted after our wedding. They were growing stronger with each passing season, and somehow they reminded me of our family. Healing hadn't happened overnight. It came through countless small decisions, honest conversations, and people choosing to be better than they had been the day before. The fear that once followed every phone call from my parents had disappeared. Family dinners were no longer battles disguised as meals, but gatherings filled with laughter, teasing, and genuine affection. Dad had retired comfortably, without sacrificing his future to rescue Adam again, and Mom had finally found time to enjoy the hobbies she'd put aside for years. Adam had completely changed his life. His graphic design career was thriving. He and Nicole had bought a modest home they could comfortably afford, and he refused every shortcut that would have once tempted him. He often joked that earning something yourself felt better than receiving 10 times as much from someone else. Nicole would laugh and remind him that she'd always known the man he could become, even if he hadn't believed it himself. Sarah and Nicole had become close friends, and every now and then, they still laughed about the dinner, where Sarah had said what nobody else had been brave enough to say. Sarah always insisted she hadn't been fearless that night. She had simply loved me more than she feared the consequences. Therapy remained part of my life, not because I was broken anymore, but because I wanted to keep growing. I finally understood that saying no wasn't selfish, that healthy boundaries weren't walls, and that love didn't require endless sacrifice. On the anniversary of everything changing, we invited everyone to our house for dinner. Watching my parents laugh with Adam while Sarah helped Nicole prepare dessert, I realized we had rebuilt something I once believed was beyond saving. My parents no longer saw me as the responsible son, and Adam as the one who always needed rescuing. They simply saw us as their sons. Before everyone left, Mom hugged Sarah tightly and quietly thanked her for loving our family enough to tell us the truth when none of us wanted to hear it. Later that evening, after the house had grown quiet, Sarah took my hand and rested it gently against her stomach. We had only learned a few days earlier that we were expecting our first child, and we weren't ready to tell anyone yet. Sitting together beneath the growing maple trees, I thought about the family our child would inherit. They would grow up knowing that love wasn't measured by how much you gave away or how much you endured. They would learn that responsibility belonged to the person making the choices, that kindness and accountability could exist together, and that the strongest families supported one another without carrying each other's burdens forever. Looking around at the home we had protected, the future we had built, and the people who had chosen to change instead of clinging to old habits, I finally understood something I had spent years searching for. Saving my house had never really been about protecting a building. It had been about protecting the life Sarah and I deserved to build inside it. Standing up for ourselves hadn't destroyed our family. It had destroyed the dysfunction that was holding it together. In its place, we found something far stronger: honesty, respect, accountability, and love that expected everyone to stand on their own feet while never doubting they would always have a place to come home to.